Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Study Huddle live Hangout. We're going to be going through a presentation this afternoon, which is hopefully going to get everybody in the mood for passing the exam. It will cover a lot of the key features of the AdWords Fundamentals exam. And at the end, they'll have some time for some questions if you've got any questions. And then what we hope you'll do is while everything's fresh in your mind, we'll go ahead and take the exam. To introduce myself, my name's Lucy Johnston, and I'm an AdWords trainer. I'm a Google partner, and I spent nearly 7 years working at Google in Dublin, chiefly on AdWords, actually. I was involved in the early days of setting up the original Google Advertising Professionals program before it became Google Partners, and one of my earliest jobs was having to narrate a PowerPoint presentation much like this about how to pass the AdWords exam. So our agenda today, this is so here we are, Lucy Johnson, the Google partner and an AdWords trainer, and I run my own advertising agency called Bread and Butter Marketing. It's very small, and but I've been certified in AdWords for a long time, and I've passed the exam many times. So I'm hoping that today I can take you through some of the key things you need to know and give you some tips and tricks as to help you get past. As we go through the Hangout, you can have the opportunity to ask some questions, which we can get to at the end. And anybody who wants to ask questions, please post them under the video in the Study Huddle live Hangout. So moving on, our agenda for today, we're going to talk about ad quality to start with. We're then going to move on to talking about what you pay. We'll talk about setting up an AdWords campaign, some targeting, bid strategies, measuring and optimizing performance, and then taking the test. Let's move on. So ad quality. This is something that people spend a lot of time getting very worried about. It's probably one of the more complex parts of AdWords. So there will be some questions about this in the exam, but some of the main things you need to know are going to be covered in the next few slides. So let's talk about how to create effective ads. An AdWords ad, as you probably already know, is a 25-character headline. You can see it up here, buy dog food online, plus 2 lines of descriptive text, shop now and save 30% on dog food, voted top pet supply store. There's a display URL, the example-site.com/dogfood, and that's the main elements of what makes up an AdWords ad. A few things you want to remember when you're creating effective ads. What Google wants us to do is to make our ads appeal to the people who are searching on Google. So if they type in something like buy dog food online, what Google would like us to do is to appeal to that particular person. So if someone's typed buy dog food online, perhaps our ad should say want to buy dog food online, or we sell dog food online, or something that matches what the query is that the person put in. You can use the descriptive text to highlight what products or services or offers make you unique. How do you entice someone to come and click on your ad as opposed to anyone else's? Something Google's very keen on is including a call to action. So shop now, buy now, call today. One of those sorts of things that makes people want to click on the ad. Matching your ad to a landing page, that's something that's very important. So say, for example, someone searched for buy dog food online and they clicked on your ad and they got taken to your entire pet store homepage. They would have to go and do another search or find the dog food there. What Google would much rather you did, and they'll incentivize you to do this, is to click on the ad and then take them to link the ad to the landing page that's most relevant to buying dog food online. Another key feature is being able to tailor your ads for mobile. So if you can, and if you want to appeal to people on a mobile device, you can write your ad in a slightly different way, perhaps shorter, more punchy, as a means of reaching people and making it easy for someone on their mobile phone, which got a much smaller screen, to be able to click through to your ad. They're very keen. It's great to experiment with Google Ads. If you, one of the features of AdWords is you can have multiple different ads matched with one different keyword list. With that means that you can experiment. You can try out different calls to action. You can try out different USPs. Is it better to have a special offer? Is it better to put that you've got free shipping? You can try those out and see which one gets the most clicks. Another thing that's quite useful to know for the exam is that the AdWords policies are very important, so that you can't just write anything you like in the ad. They have to comply with the editorial and product policies that Google has. Google are trying to ensure that ads are useful, varied, relevant, and safe for web users. Let's move on and talk about some ad extensions. So ad extensions essentially extend your ads. They allow you to see they allow you to show off extra features of your ad. One great benefit is they actually take up more space on the screen. There are lots of different formats of ad extensions, so you can use apps, you can use calls, you can use locations. So call extensions basically shows a phone number on your ad and allows someone to call you directly from the ad. An app extension allows someone to download one of your apps from your ad. Review extensions shows positive reviews of your business or of our business, of your client's business if you're an agency, underneath your ad, encouraging people to click it. Site links. On our example ad here, you can see that there are 4 site links showing with this ad. So there's an electronic site link, the personal care, Jet Anywhere, and household products. These are the 4 specific pages of this site, jet.com, and they allow someone who's browsing Google or searching on Google to say, well, actually, it's electronics I really want to get from this company, so I'll click down here rather than up on the main headline, and that will take me to a more specific part of the site. There are also call-out extensions and dynamic structured snippets. There are a few automated extensions too. These are extensions you can't physically set up, but which Google, if they spot that they might be useful for your ads, will automatically add onto your ads. So these are consumer ratings, previous visits, social extensions, and seller ratings. It's worth studying up on these. They're something that Google puts great store by, and there's quite a lot of questions about them in the exam. So hopefully you'll find that overview useful. Here's a sample Study Huddle exam question. So Ellen runs a chain of cinemas across London. Which ad extension would you advise her to use in particular? Now in the exam, you're going to look at these 4 questions and 4 answers, then all multiple answer questions. So you choose one of the following 4 options. Now when you're doing the exam, it's a really good idea to rule out the ones that you don't think are right early on. From what I was saying in the slide before, we now know that seller ratings and previous visits extensions are automated extensions. So which ad extension would you advise her to use in particular? You haven't got much control over the seller ratings or previous visits extensions, so that narrows it down to either answer A or C. The question is, Ellen runs a chain of cinemas across London. Now for a chain of cinemas, what's really important is the location. People tend to visit their most local cinema. So of the 2, site link extensions and location extensions, in this case, location extensions would be really important, because when someone searches for a cinema near Clapham, if this client has got a cinema in Clapham, they will see that this is a very local one, and similarly a client in another part of London, or a potential cinema visitor in another part of London, will see that this location is very near them. So location extensions would be the answer to this question. Let's move on now and talk about what you pay for AdWords. It's something that obviously a lot of our clients are always very interested in, and it's something that it's a good thing to get a good grip of. So one of the questions we had from a study huddler earlier was, I was doing one of the sample exams. I don't know how many of you come across, but there is a sample exam on a platform called iPass Exam. And this person was doing one the other day, and there was a question I saw which asked about quality score and CPC. I remember this changed a while ago. Can you clarify exactly how ads are ranked? So the person who asked the question is right. This has changed over the years. The way ads are ranked has evolved. Google has made several updates. Quality score is made up of 3 different aspects. So there's the landing page experience, the expected click-through rate, and the ad relevance. Quality score is there designed to ensure that when someone advertises on Google, it's the person who appears at the top isn't just the person who's willing to pay the most per click. The person who appears at the top is the person who's got the best combination of the quality score and the amount they're willing to pay. And what makes up the quality score is 3 different elements. It's the landing page experience, it's the expected click-through rate, and the ad relevance. Expected click-through rate is what Google thinks is going to be the click-through rate of an ad. When you first create your ad, Google doesn't know what the click-through rate is because it hasn't started running yet. But they've run an awful lot of ads in their time, so they know that they can make a pretty good guess of what they expect the click-through rate to be. So they'll assign your ad an expected click-through rate. As the ad starts running, that expected click-through rate is then customized to be exactly what that ad's click-through rate has been, or to take into account its history. Google also takes into account the landing page experience. So when someone reaches the landing page of your client's website, is that giving that user a good experience? Google's got a huge incentive to make sure that people who use Google and then go to another website have a good experience. Otherwise, that person may not use Google again the next time, and they really want to keep people coming back to Google. So the landing page experience is vital. And once we get an idea, some of the things that make up landing page experience, is that page relevant to where what that person searched for? So back to our dog food example, if someone searches for buy dog food online, Google would want to see that this landing page contains the word dog food, because that will give it a pretty good indication that this is a page that person will want to go to. Google also looks at the ad relevance, so it will look at the list of keywords you've got, and it will look at the ad copy that you've written, and will try to work out, are those keywords and that ad text really related to each other? So if the keyword phrase that you've used, say for example, buy dog food online, appears exactly the same in the ad copy itself, that ad will have a higher ad relevance than one that doesn't mention the word dog or food. Moving on, a question I've been asked, I don't know how many times, but I'm sure you all have too. How do I appear in the top spot? So advertisers always want to be at the top of Google, and how do they get there? So the advertisers with the highest ad rank are the ones who are going to end up in the top position. So ad rank in the early days was just a function of, it was the amount you were willing to pay per click, your maximum bid, multiplied by the click-through rate. This has since evolved to become the ad rank is a function of the bid multiplied by the quality score. So that was the next iteration, and what Google were trying to do there was to incorporate parts of the quality score as a sort of better indicator of whether an ad was going to do well, as opposed to the click-through rate, which could easily be manipulated. And they wanted to incorporate landing page quality and all sorts of other things. So it's something that's very important to have a look at, and it was something that Google really wanted to make sure it was an important part of the thing. What they then have now done, though, is moved on even further. And now ad rank is, rather than just a straightforward multiplication of the bid multiplied by the quality score, so the ad rank is now a function of the bid and the quality score, and they've also included the expected impact of extensions and formats. So this is, Google now uses ad formats and ad extensions as an indicator as to how they should rank your ad. So ads that use ad extensions, as many as are relevant to that advertiser, will have a better ad rank than ads that don't use those. Again, it's a great way of improving a client's quality score or rank and position without having to charge them anymore, by making sure that you're using all the latest and greatest ad extensions. Moving on, how does budgeting work? So it says on this slide, Google multiplies your budget by 30.4 to come up with a monthly budget. What Google does basically is they work on a daily budget basis. If you've got as an advertiser, you set a daily budget beyond which you don't want to spend any more. Now Google obviously has to work out how much that is over a given month, and on average there are 30.4 days in every month over the year. So some months obviously have 31 days, some have 30, some have 28. And Google has to work out an average amount for each of days in each month. So Google does daily budget times 30.4, which is the monthly budget. On any given day, if, say, for example, you've got a daily budget of £10 and a maximum CPC of £1, that would allow you potentially to get at least 10 clicks in that day. Because you're not necessarily charged your full bid amount, you might actually get more clicks in that day. But the daily budget means that Google's trying to stop your advertiser spending more than they want to. Now, occasionally, for example, if you've got a very, very popular keyword and you're bidding on it and the ad's doing really well, and Google hasn't quite anticipated how well the ad's going to do, your advertiser may end up spending more on one given day than your daily budget. And what Google does is it multiplies that out. So you can go over 20% on any one given day, but what Google will try and do is even that out over any given month. So you'll never go more than your daily budget multiplied by 30.4. So on this monthly budget that Google concocts. It's quite good actually. If you ever do go over that monthly budget, Google gives you the money back in credits. So you've actually got free clicks, which is quite a nice thing to know. So don't ever panic if you see this going over too much, because you'll always get the money back. It's possible to go above or below your daily budget on any given day, but Google won't go over your monthly budget. There are two delivery methods. your ads, the standard delivery method means that, say for example, you've got this daily budget of £10 and Google anticipates that you actually might get £20 worth of clicks. So what they'll do, in order not to use up all your budget first thing in the morning, is they will stagger your ads. They'll only show your ad every so often throughout the day in order not to exceed the budget. You can override this setting though and make it accelerated. So for example, if you're an agency where the client just wants to get a certain budget spent, or they really just want to get as many clicks as possible, you can set the ads to run on an accelerated basis, and that will allow the ads, it will just use up the budget as fast as it can on any given day. Moving on, how much will I actually pay? So we've talked a lot about if I'm about bidding and maximum cost per click and so on, but actually you don't always pay the amount that you have set as your maximum bid. So when you're creating an ad group, you set how much you're willing to pay per click. So you've set up your daily budget, might be £10, and then you're going to say on a per click basis, how much am I willing to pay for each click? Now this is important for two reasons. One is that it's how much you might spend, but the other thing is that maximum cost per click is Google takes as your bid into the auction as to which ad is going to be at the top. So if you're willing to bid £1, Google takes that as your maximum amount and then uses that in the competition with other advertisers to work out who's going to get to the top. So bidding higher potentially can increase your position on Google. On this example, we've got three advertisers bidding: Dave, Susan and George. Dave has got a bid of £1, Susan has got a bid of £1, and George is bidding far more at £2.35. Dave has also got a very high quality score, so the quality score is scored out of 10, so 10 out of 10, Dave's quality score is really pretty high. Susan's quality score is slightly lower at 8 out of 10, it's still a good quality score, but it's not quite as superb as Dave's. And George has got a really pretty low quality score of 3. So what that means is that actually the actual cost per click, Dave ends up paying 81 pence per click, Susan pays 89 pence, so she's paying more to be in a lower position on Google, and George is going to be below that and will pay the auction minimum, that is the minimum amount required to take part in this auction. So you can see that for our clients, there's a huge incentive in trying to make sure that our keywords and our landing pages are as relevant as they possibly can be, because the more relevant you can make your ads and keywords, the less you'll need to pay per click and the higher your ad will show. So it's a big incentive, and it's something Google wants to push because they want the most relevant ads to be the highest. They don't necessarily want the people who are willing to pay the most to be the highest. Moving on. So here we are with another example question, a Study Huddle sample exam question. So AdWords calculates the ad rank using which of the following 4 options? This is a fairly typical question that you might get in the exam. You won't get this exact question, but it's pretty typical of something you might get in the exam. So 4 options again. Which of the following is going to be the best way, does Google use to work out the ad rank? A, quality score and maximum CPC. B, quality score, maximum CPC and the daily budget you've set. C, quality score, maximum CPC and the ad rotation options. D, quality score, maximum CPC and expected performance of ad extensions and other formats. So hopefully you'll remember from the previous couple of slides that the answer would be D, quality score, maximum CPC and expected performance of ad extensions and other formats. That's what Google uses to calculate the ad rank. Let's move on now and talk about setting up an AdWords campaign. So on Google, this is something that is I think often underused and underrated. And the way you set up an AdWords account really has a huge bearing on how well the campaign will perform. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I often get clients who come to me and they've got a list of 1,000 keywords and one ad, all in one ad group within one campaign, and they're not getting any success with AdWords at all. Now, I find that this is something that I can help with very quickly, just literally by restructuring the account. Perhaps keeping many of the same keywords, but just splitting them out into lots of different ad groups and organizing them into different campaigns. And once I've done that, it can make, just by changing those things around, I can make the ads much more tailored to the keywords, and I can make everything perform much better. And I can bring the costs of each click down by quite a big factor. So here we are. Here's a question from one of our study huddlers. Have you got any tips for dealing with AdWords accounts where the campaigns are really messily organized? So my answer to that question is to make use of the AdWords campaign structure, the AdWords account structure. My next slide shows how an AdWords account is set up. So you can see that over here we have the AdWords account at the very top level. When you create an AdWords account, you set up a unique email address and password and your billing information. So these are the details that apply to the entire account. Within an account, you have campaigns. Now, the campaigns allow you to structure the ad account into different sections. Now, what I try and do usually is to group my campaigns. I have one campaign for one particular set of targeting options. So it might be that the client's got a budget for one side of the business and a separate budget for another side of the business. Because you set your daily budget at the campaign level, that would be a really good indicator. So say, for example, they had a £100 budget for dog food and a £50 budget for advertising cat food. Now, if that's the way they run their business, because the campaign budget is set at the campaign level, having two campaigns, one with a £100 daily budget or £100 budget for the dog food and a £50 budget for the cat food, would allow me to manage the spend of this AdWords account in line with that advertiser's goals and the way that they run their business. You might also separate the campaigns into different ways based on geographical things, because you set, again, another thing you set at the campaign level is the location and language targeting. So if you've got an advertiser as a client who wants to target 2 different locations, you might want to have 2 different campaigns, one for each different location. You also set start and end dates of your campaigns, and bid adjustments are set at the campaign level. So all of these things would be a different reason to have a separate campaign. I try and not have too many campaigns because it makes reporting very, very complex, but that's a really good, so if any one of these changes, that's a really good reason to introduce a new campaign. Within the campaign structure, each campaign can have multiple ad groups, and an ad group is a combination of keywords and ad texts, ad copy, ad creative, if you like. People call them all 3 things, but that combination of a list of keywords plus an ad to go with them. And an ad group enables you to be really, really targeted. So you could have one ad group that was about buying dog food online, and you could have another ad group that was about buying cat food online. And what I've often seen as this person asked was about messy accounts, was one ad group with loads of different keywords. It might have buy dog food online, it might have buy cat food online, it might have buy goldfish online, and they would all be in the same ad group, paired up with a text that said, we are a fantastic pet shop, we cater for all pets. And while that is the answer, that is what that advertiser does, it's not necessarily that useful for someone who's searching for dog food. They don't care that the shop sells all sorts of different foods or different pets. All they want to know is how they can buy dog food. So ad groups allow you to have one ad group which is about dog food compared with an ad that's all about how this company sells dog food, and another set of keywords about buying cat food paired with an ad about cat food. So that's what is so strong about the ad group structure, is that you're able to set all these different options. One other thing I should say about campaigns is that it's at the campaign level that you set where your ad is going to show, not just in location, but also in the network. So Google has, obviously, it's got the search network, which includes Google itself, but it also has the display network, which is the network of sites across partner sites that Google partners up with across the entire internet, which allows advertisers through Google AdWords to target ads to sites like newspaper sites or blogs or other sorts of content where people aren't necessarily searching. And you can set up a different campaign targeting the display sites versus search sites. So different sorts of advertising might want a different campaign. Moving on, something to be very aware of as an advertising agency is that Google has this feature called the My Client Center, or an AdWords Manager account, which is essentially another layer on top of regular AdWords accounts. With an AdWords Manager account, you can link in your client's account. So your agency has one overall AdWords Manager account, actually you can have several, but it allows you to have your dog food client account, your car vehicle account, and your other client who sells holidays, and have them, each of those AdWords accounts, managed from one place for you, but which have no interaction with each other. So in the old days, I remember working with advertising agencies who tried to put all their clients in just as campaigns in their accounts. Now that was That was very tricky for reporting and budgeting, and Google really doesn't like this at all. So what they're trying to encourage us to do as agencies is to have an AdWords Manager account and then link our clients' accounts to our AdWords Manager account for the duration of our tenure as their agency. The beauty of it is because you can link them in, you're just using the customer ID. If you get your client's customer ID of their AdWords account, you can link it to your AdWords Manager account, and they can unlink it whenever they need to. So when they're finished their relationship with you, or they want to move on and do something differently, they can unlink it from you. They don't need to change their passwords. They don't need to share their password with you. It's a much more secure way of managing it, and it's fairer for the client and for the agency. Moving on. So there are a number of different campaign types, as I was talking about earlier, and at different campaign levels we set different things. So when you're setting up a campaign, you can choose which type of network you want your ad to show on in this campaign. So by default, Google sets it up with a search network with display select, and what this means is that your ads will show on Google's search partners, and also on display select, which is a selected list of websites that selected parts of the display network that Google thinks this particular ad will be relevant for. If you want to go a little bit more targeted than that, you can set up a search network only campaign. So this allows you to target your ads simply to the search network, and within that there's actually a feature where you can just target Google itself rather than the search partners. It's one of the most commonly used types, and that's one of the things I would suggest when you're starting out in AdWords that you use. You can also target your display network only campaigns in here. So Google's display network, if you wanted to run a display campaign for, say for example, your client had a brand new pet business and they wanted people in a particular local area to know that they had launched, you could run a display campaign on sites related to that local area with an ad, perhaps an image or a video ad or a rich media ad showing how that your client's business had launched and that anyone with any pet needs should feel free to come into the shop because it's really nearby, and so on and so forth. So display network only allows you to run those sorts of branding and awareness raising campaigns. You can set up at your Google Shopping where you create product listing ads within it, or you can create a video campaign. These options are explored more in the video ads exam and the shopping ads exam and the display ad exam. You may have they may touch on it in the exam that you're going to be taking this afternoon, but they're not gone into much detail, so you don't need to know so much about them. We're focused mostly on the search network here. In this next slide, you can see that we are now once we've selected, for example, search network with display select, we can choose either to go with standard or with all features. Now, again, by default, Google, to try and sort of keep some of the more complicated features from confusing newer advertisers, they have a standard features which doesn't have all the most advanced features available. But for those of us who are perhaps working in AdWords day in, day out, we will perhaps use all features much more often. So it gives you all options for the search network with display select. You can also have a search network only. Again, you can choose between standard or all features. All features gives you mobile app installs, the mobile app engagement, dynamic search ads, call only ads, and so on. So you get a bit more detail in it. With display network only campaign type, the subtypes are marketing objective. You can choose by marketing objective, which or to have either to choose to tell Google your marketing objectives, and they will help you set up your campaign in line with those objectives, or you can go with no marketing objectives, and that gives you the freedom to do whatever you like with your campaign. So moving on, a keyword planner is Google's tool that allows you to, it was an amalgamation of the keyword tool and the traffic estimator that Google used to have, and it's a great tool to allow you to work out which keywords you're going to run on, the ads you're going to use, and it allows you to focus on on which keywords you'd like to use for any particular campaign. So it'll give you ideas, it'll give you related keywords. So say for example you come up with a topic, it will give you some ideas of keyword lists you might want to build. It will come up with related keywords and search information, so it'll tell you potential search volumes for a particular keyword. So it might tell you that you're going to get 10 times the amount of search traffic on one keyword versus the other one, which is maybe more specific. It will give you suggested keywords in ad groups, so it can move it will group your keywords together into an ad group. So for that person who was asking about how to deal with a really messy campaign, the keyword planner might take that huge long list of keywords and group them into specific ad groups by theme, which can really take some of the pain out of dealing with an account like that. Another nice feature it's got is there's a keyword multiplier. So for example, if you've got a solicitor as a client and the solicitor's got 2 different locations, you might work quite hard to come up with a keyword list of what a solicitor has. So it might be conveyancing and personal injury claims and so on, and you'd come up with a long list of those keywords, and the keyword multiplier allows you to put in another list of terms and to combine your first list with your second list. So you can quite quickly say, for example, the first location was London and the second location was Birmingham. You can combine your keyword lists to end up with one lot, which is London conveyancing solicitor, and then you combine it with Birmingham as well to get Birmingham's conveyancing solicitor, so you wouldn't have to come up with double the keywords yourself. So it's quite a nice feature. The data is based on historical statistics and traffic estimates. The keyword planner is available in the Tools tab of AdWords, so it's something that you can access as soon as you've set up the AdWords account. I tend to use it often with if I'm starting off with a new client, I often create their AdWords account even before they've signed up, because I use the keyword planner to try to plan out the campaigns and maybe use it for when I'm pitching to those clients. Moving on, let's talk about the display planner. This is something that does come up in the exam, and the display planner is very similar to the keyword planner, but if you're running a display campaign, it helps you to create all the different places you might want to run your display ad. So a display ad is a little different to a keyword targeted as a search ad, because while you can run them based on a keyword list, you can also target your display ads based on topics or based on particular categories of site that you might want your ads to show on. It provides ideas for keywords placement, so it might come up, if you put in your website, it might come up with suggested sites that you might want to show an ad for your site on. So for example, if you were running an ad for a tourism company, it might suggest some of the travel pages of some of the online media sites. You can use it to expand the reach of existing campaigns. So if you've got a campaign that's running quite well and it's getting you some nice conversions and the client's happy with it, you can use the display planner to get more ideas. It'll take your existing list and say, well, these ones are working really well. What about some other ideas like this? And yeah, you can do it based on campaign targeting, so you can target it based on the UK or different other markets. You can choose which type of bidding you want to do. So do you want to do CPC bidding or other sorts of bidding, which we'll come on to later in the presentation. Here's another sample question. So we've got the display planner will help you, A, by using your keywords to suggest sites on the display network where your ads might appear. B, see which of your ads is working best on a selection of websites that you target. C, manage CPC bids for a set of ads in contextual campaigns in your AdWords account. Or D, run reports on how your current campaigns are converting. Now, if I was seeing this in the exam, again, what I'd try and do is rule out any of the ones that I know are definitely not the right answer. So run reports on how your current campaigns are converting, it's not going to be that one. In fact, hopefully by now, having looked at the display planner, one of the things you should know is that the answer is A, by using your keywords to suggest sites on the display network where your ads might appear. One of the nice things, suggestions I've got when you're doing the exam, is because you can have other windows open on your computer while you're doing it, is I would always have an AdWords account open at the time, and say for example you hadn't used the keyword tool very much or the display tool very much, you can go in and have a quick look, and you may well find the answers right in your AdWords account. Same thing with the AdWords extensions. So if you're not sure if one of them is an automated extension or a manual extension, you can literally open up the campaign in your account and just have a quick check in front of you and see which one it is. We'll now move on to talking about targeting. So using keywords, match types, and other forms of targeting. I suspect, because they've been around for a long time, many of you will already be familiar with the keyword match types. So for ages and ages and ages, there was just broad match, phrase match, exact match, and negative match. So we've got broad match. If you create a keyword list and just type the keywords in with no extra punctuation, that will be a broad match keyword. And our example here is women's hats. Now this has no special symbols, and it's a very, very broad way of targeting. If you just use the keyword women's hats, Google might show your ad on misspellings of women's hats, synonyms, related searches, and other relevant variations. So for example, if someone typed "buy ladies hats" into Google, your ad with the keyword women's hats might show. They've recently, or fairly recently, introduced a new match type, which is broad match modifier, which is a little bit more specific than broad match on its own. And you use this by adding the plus symbol in front of any of the words that you think are really important. So in the case of women's hats, say for example you had the phrase "buy women's hats" in your keyword list, you might want to put a plus in front of women's and a plus in front of hats, just to make sure that while Google showed your ad on various variations, by putting the plus in front, you're telling Google that you would like your ad only to show when it's a very close variation of the word women's and a very close variation of the word hats. So the phrase must contain the modified terms or close variations, but not synonyms. So women's, perhaps ladies, wouldn't trigger the ad in this example. But it can be in any order. So if someone searches for hats for women, because that's very similar and it contains the word hats and the words women, that would be likely to trigger your ad. The next more targeted option, more specific option, is phrase match. So in phrase match, you put inverted commas around the keywords, and that means that the ad will only trigger when that specific phrase in that order is very close to what the person has searched for. So for example, if someone searched for "buy women's hats," because that phrase is included, your ad would show. But if someone searched for "women's sport hat" or "women's suit hat," "women's dress hats," those are, because you've broken up that phrase "women's hats," that wouldn't trigger your ad. Now exact match is the most targeted and specific of all, and you put that in square brackets. So you put your keyword or your keyword phrase in square brackets. Here we've got "women's hats" in square brackets, and what we see is that only that exact term can trigger your ad. Now, a year or two ago, Google introduced a slight change, which is that very close variations and misspellings of that exact term can trigger your ad, so plurals perhaps. So "women's hats" would be the trigger, but also something very, very, very close. So it's not solely women's hats, but it's the most specific way that you can target it. The last keyword phrase, the last match type, is slightly different because it's a negative one. So if you put a minus sign or a dash in front of the keyword, your example keyword is, for example, "baseball." So any searches without this term could trigger ad. So often it's a good one to run in conjunction with, if you're using broad match, you would never want to use broad match without using a pretty good negative keyword list. But even with phrase and exact match, it's worth adding some negative keywords in. So searches, in this example, if you had a women's hat shop but you didn't sell baseball hats, you would add the negative keyword "baseball," and that would mean that your ad could show for any of these variations, so hats for women, but if they put in "baseball hats for women," that ad would not show. Now, other sorts of targeting. So we're all pretty used to search network targeting being based on keywords that we come up with that people then type into Google. On the display network, there are lots of other different sorts of targeting. So in addition to keywords, you can use different targeting methods to match an ad to places or audience on the display network. So for example, contextual targeting uses, you can add your keyword list as you would on the search network, but Google will look at that keyword list in your display campaign ad group, and it would take that keyword list and look at websites which also contain words similar to that keyword list, and it would use that as a targeting technique. So when it found a website with words similar to your keyword list, your ad could show on that site. It can also do it based on topics. So for example, they have categorized various sites in their network into topics, and you as an advertiser can then select that topic as a means of targeting your ad. So if you had a client who was selling cars, you could select the autos and vehicles topic within the display network. Another way of targeting on the display network is by managed placement. So say, for example, you've got a client who's desperate to show in certain online media. You can use the display network to target particular sites. So it might be that they want to show only on the sports pages of the Guardian newspaper, in which case you can add that as a managed placement. You can add the Guardian's sports page online version of the URL of that page as a managed placement, and the client's ad would then be eligible to show on that page if it then won the auction. Another way of targeting in the display network is by audience. So you can reach specific groups of people by remarketing. So remarketing works by when someone's been to your site, you can then retarget them based on the fact that they've been on your site. You can do it based on interest-based audiences, so affinity audiences. An affinity audience is an audience that has an affinity for a particular product or a specific interest, such as skiing, for example. So Google, because people are signed in, knows when people are interested in skiing websites, and if they go from a skiing website to another website, Google can perhaps show your client's ad on that second website because they know that they've been on a skiing website before, so they have an affinity for skiing that we can use as a targeting option. There are also demographic targeting options of by gender or by age, and there's also another nice one which is in-market audiences, which is when Google knows that someone's in the market to buy something, you can target those people using in-market targeting. Let's have another Study Huddle sample exam question. So in this question, it is, your client wants to reach a section of people who are expatriate English speakers living in France. How would you set up your campaign to target this group? So this is a question or a type of question that comes up quite a lot in the exams, where Google's looking to understand whether you've grasped the geographical and location targeting options. What you're looking to do then here is look at what is this client trying to achieve. So they're trying to reach people who are living in France. They're expatriate English speakers living in France. So they're living in France, but they speak English. So we're needing to find a campaign setting that's going to allow us to reach those people. So create a campaign targeting the UK with ads and keywords in French. We can rule that one out because the expatriate English speakers are living in France. And if we target our campaign to the UK, those people living in France won't see the ad because the targeting is based on the location of the person doing the search. We could set up a campaign with ads and keywords about houses in France. That's not going to help either. So that's another incorrect answer. Create a keyword list with exact match keywords about France, but with negative keyword French. Again, the exact match, broad match, and phrase match keywords are not about targeting people by location, so that answer is not going to be the correct. But not going to be the right answer. But option D, create a campaign geographically targeting France with a language setting of English, is going to reach those people living in France, and it's also going to reach those people who are expatriates because they're going to have their language setting to English. Google sets your works out what your language setting is based on the preferences of your Google's preferences. So if you are using google.co.uk and you have your language preference set to English, that's what the language targeting Google will use to target the ads to you. So if your language preference is set to English, you will see English-based ads. If you change it to French, you'll see ads targeted to people who are French speakers. The language targeting French will target you. So the correct answer to that question is option D. Moving on, just a sort of quick refresher about location targeting. This is a client or an advertiser who potentially wants to target the US. There are many, many options for targeting, but you can see that this advertiser is using location targeting, and it's doing it based on, they've added in different sections of parts of New York. So they didn't want to target anywhere outside New York, but they've added in New Jersey, Connecticut, the 11th district of New York, New Jersey 7 and New Jersey 5. So here in the UK, we can target it by areas around a particular postcode, for example, which could be really, really beneficial. If your client's just located in one particular particular location, then you can manage this targeting in a very specific way. One thing you might want to do, for example, is do an ad targeted to people 20 miles around Brighton, for example. If your client's based in Brighton and they service people as far away as 20 miles away, you could set up a campaign targeting people in Brighton with a radius of 20 miles. Mobile adjustments. So there's a lot going on with the mobile space. Everyone's got a smartphone, and Google allows advertisers to target people based on their mobile device. This is now done through bid adjustments. So in the campaign settings of any campaign, you can target people by increasing up a percentage or down a percentage based on what you want them to do. So in this example, you can see that we got the 3 different options of where people can show. They can show their ads on computers, mobile devices with full browsers, or tablets with full browsers. And you can then increase your bid. So if you decrease or decrease your bid. So if you decrease your bid, if you didn't want your ad to show on anything except computers, you could decrease your bid on mobile devices with full browsers by 100%, and similarly with tablets by 100%. Or if you're very keen to get people to come who are on their mobile phones, maybe you know that people on their mobile phones might be searching for your business. If it's a particular location business, people might just walk in off the street. You could perhaps increase your bid so that when people are searching for you for something related to your business on their mobile phones, you're going to actually pay more per click, or you're willing to pay more per click for those people, because you really want the people who might be walking up and down the street nearby your premises. The other way of targeting mobiles is when you're creating your ad copy. So say, for example, you're buying dog food online, say 30% with code #doggy, voted top pet supply company to 2015. At the bottom of this ad, you get the device preference for mobile. So that will mean that that ad is more likely to show on mobiles. And a nice way of setting up an ad group is to have some regular desktop computer ads, but also some mobile ads. And maybe your mobile ads will be a bit shorter, and they might perhaps take people to a different landing page, maybe a mobile-enabled, sort of a page enhanced for mobile devices that allows you to perhaps have a slightly different call to action. Maybe you want to ask them to give you a call rather than filling in a form, because that's something that a mobile user is more likely to do. So to keep moving on, we're going to talk next about bid strategies, and we're going to use bidding to meet the goals. This is something, again, that's been evolving a lot recently with Google, and it's something that it's good to keep up to date with. So let's start off with a question from one of the study huddlers. Can we have a run through of the bidding strategies section? There have been a lot of updates to the terminology recently. So of course we can have a run through for the bidding strategies section. There are currently 4 different bidding types that you need to know about. There's good old CPC bidding, which has been around forever, which allows you to bid based on the maximum cost per click you're willing to pay for any given keyword. You can set your bids at the ad group or the keyword level, and you have complete control over all your bids. CPM bidding is something that's available on the display network. It's cost per 1,000 impression bids, CPM cost per M being 1,000, and they've just very recently changed this to being VCPM, which is viewable CPM. So they're now only going to charge people for an impression based on whether that was viewable or not. So if it was right down at the bottom of the page and that person never viewed that ad, it won't. The advertiser will not be charged. CPA bidding is where you bid based on an acquisition, so cost per acquisition, and you tell Google how much you're willing to pay for any given sale. So it'll be a lot more than you're willing to pay for any given click, and Google will then adjust your bids up and down to try and achieve your target CPA. You do need to have set up conversion tracking in order to be able to do that, or import the data from Google Analytics, and then you need to turn on Conversion Optimizer, which uses historical information about your campaign. Then you'll then set a maximum or target cost per acquisition bid and it will then, Google AdWords system will then increase your bid when it thinks a conversion is more likely. So again, it's something that if your client's got a very specific budget and a very specific cost per acquisition strategy, and they know exactly how much they're willing to pay for any given sale, then that's a bidding option that can work really nicely. Let's look a little bit at flexible bidding strategies. So these are the more advanced bidding options. Enhanced CPC automatically adjusts a manual cost per click bid based on each click's likelihood to result in a conversion. It's somewhere a little bit between regular CPC bidding and cost per acquisition bidding. The target CPA bid sets bids to help get as many conversions as possible while reaching your average cost per acquisition goal. The maximize clicks option automatically sets bids to help get the most clicks within a target spend amount. This is something I quite like to use if a client's got a very fixed maximum daily budget, and when we're running out of clicks, we can't get enough clicks. Say for example the budget was £10 and the advertiser couldn't spend any more than £10 a day, but we were running out of budget every day and we were missing out on clicks. Sometimes if you turn on the maximize clicks option, Google will show your ads more often and will choose the times to show your ads more cleverly than just on a rotation basis. So target search page location, which allows you to bid for a particular place on a page. So if, for example, your client's obsessed with appearing in position 1, this is something you could use so that you tell Google, I want to, don't bid based on my maximum CPC, but bid based on where my target search page location is. So I want to appear in position 1 always as much as possible. So if you turn this bidding option on, Google will do its best to ensure that your ad appears in position 1. I've heard of people using as well, they find that they get as many conversions at they get slightly fewer conversions, but they actually pay far less per click, so it ends up being more profitable to show perhaps in position 3 or position 4. And that's something that you could use this target search page location for. You can also set a target return on ad spend. So with this, you automatically set your bids to maximize your conversion value while trying to reach an average return on the ad spend. You can also do a target outranking share. So one of the statistics that AdWords can give you in your account is how often your ad's being outranked by others. With the new changes about the only showing 4 ads per page, this is something that maybe we should all be using a lot more, the target outranking share. So if your ads are being outranked, you can use this to try and stop your ad being outranked and tell Google to bid based on the amount of times that your ad is being outranked. Let's move on and talk about bid adjustments. So we already saw a little bit about bid adjustments with the mobile settings. In the campaign settings, though, you now have the option to set bid adjustments based on location. So say, for example, I've got a client who it costs them more the further outside London they have to go. That client will cost more to service. So it's the same for sort of any plumber or anyone who has to drive a certain distance to get to a particular location. So it might be that for people who are really close to that location, you'd be willing to bid up a little bit. So you can put in a bid adjustment for those locations, and then when someone is a little bit further away, you might want to bid down a bit. So say, for example, you had a standard maximum CPC of £1, you could bid so that if the person searching is really close to your target business, you could bid up by 20%. So you might want to pay £1.20 for that person because it's going to save you a lot of money in the mileage of getting to service that client. Whereas if someone's based 100 miles away, and while they're still within your target area and you would go and service them, the actual profit to your client is not going to be nearly as big because they'll have to factor in the mileage. So you might want to only bid 80% of your usual click for that client, because if you've got a particular budget, you'd rather get more clients who are close to your client's business and fewer who are further away. You can also do the similar sort of bid adjustments for the time of the day, so ad scheduling. So you can say that I think more people are likely to want to buy my product between 2 o'clock in the afternoon and 6 o'clock in the afternoon, therefore I'll bid more at that time of day and less perhaps at another time of day. Similarly, as we saw earlier, you can bid up or down on mobile devices or tablets based on your whether you think that they're likely to turn into sales or not. Another Study Huddle sample exam question. You're advising a client who wants to increase their conversions from people on mobile devices. What would you suggest to enhance their bidding strategy? So we've got 4 options again: cost per acquisition, CPA bidding, maximize clicks bidding, using mobile bid adjustments to increase their bid to people on mobiles, or manual CPC bidding. So which one of these we're going to go with? The answer is going to be C, so using mobile bid adjustments to increase their bid to people on mobiles. Let's keep moving on. Another question: what would you do with search terms you found in the search terms report that were not relevant to the advertiser's business? So this is leading us on to measuring and optimizing performance. So in the search terms report, which we'll go through in a minute, you get a list of all the keywords that your ad has shown for. So it's not necessarily the keywords that you've typed in, but it's all the phrases that people have searched for that, due to your broad match or phrase match options, Google has chosen to show your ad for. So you can run through this report, and one of the things you'd want to do if ones with keywords that you found were not relevant to the advertiser business is to add these terms as negative keywords. Let's keep going because I'm conscious of time. We're just going to talk quickly about measuring and optimizing performance and getting the most out of AdWords. So there are many, many reports in AdWords for measuring performance, and one of the ones you might want to use, as I was just talking about there, is the search terms report. So the search term report you find under the keywords tab. You get the option of keywords, and you see the negative keywords, and also the search terms. So using this report is something that's very, very, very useful. There are other reports you can get within the dimensions tab. Use the search term reports. There are auction insights reports. We talked about that again earlier, where you can see how your ads are doing in the auction. Are they winning the auction, or are they being outbid quite a lot? You can see the top movers report, which keywords are suddenly getting more traffic. So if you've got a new product and people are starting to search for it, you'll start to see that appear in the top movers report. The paid and organic report is a really good one that's fairly recently arrived, and that's one which shows how your ad has performed. Sorry, how your client's website has performed on the organic side of things and the SEO side of things versus how it's performed in the ad side of things. You need to link the Webmaster Tools account, or sorry, Search Console account, together with your AdWords account to be able to see that. In the exam, there's a lot of talk about ROI, or return on investment. Measuring return on investment is the ratio of net profits to costs. So measuring ROI in AdWords is essential to knowing if your campaigns are succeeding. The conversion rate and converted clicks can help determine the ROI of campaigns. So this equation is a really good one to remember. Revenue, so ROI equals revenue, so total amount of money generated by the sales of the products that your advertising account is selling, minus the cost of the goods sold, divided by the cost of the goods sold. So that will give you your return on investment. And if I were you, I'd jot that down because that's something that comes up quite a lot in the exam. Say, for example, you have a product that costs £100 to produce and it sells for £200. You sell 6 of them as a result of advertising on AdWords. Total sales are therefore £1,200 and AdWords costs £200. So the return on investment would be £1,200 minus the £600 it costs to produce the things plus the £200 it costs to advertise them. So that would be £400, all divided by the cost of the goods sold. So again, it would be £600 plus £200. So your return on investment would be 50%. Another quick sample exam question. You're pitching to a new client who manufactures and sells a particular product and need to work out how high you can set their maximum cost per click for AdWords still to be profitable. Which pieces of information would help you to do this calculation? How much they paid their previous agency to run their AdWords account and the numbers of clicks they receive daily? Would you need what the costs are to produce each of their products and how much they generate in sales? Would you need what the previous maximum CPC was and the average daily budget? Or would you need how many impressions the ads receive daily and the overall cost of the account? Well, from the previous slide, we know that what we need to know is what are the costs to produce each of their products and how much they generate in sales. Conversion tracking. Hopefully you're all familiar with conversion tracking. Now you can either use conversion tracking that's set up in AdWords through the AdWords conversion tracking tool, or what I suspect many of you use more is the Google Analytics goals that you can then import into AdWords in order to be able to see it. Setting up conversion tracking is fairly simple. You need to put a snippet of HTML or JavaScript code on pages that customers see after completing a conversion. Improving campaigns. let's talk for a minute about this. There are indicators that you can track and efforts you can make to improve a campaign based on traffic. So some of the things you might want to look at are clicks and click-through rate, keywords and quality score, impressions, the reach and frequency, multiple ads in an ad group, and campaign experiments. These are all things that you can use, tools that you as an agency can use to help improve an advertiser's performance. We're going to conclude the presentation here, and I'm just going to go through a couple of tips for taking the test. The exam logistics and resources. The exam is 120 minutes in length. You might get it finished quicker than that. There are 100 questions to answer, though, and you need 80% to pass. Once you've passed the exam, it's valid for 12 months. To take your exam, what you need to do is go to the Google Partners page, sign up for Google Partners, and under Google Partners, you'll see certifications, and you'll need to go to AdWords, and then select the AdWords Fundamentals exam, and click on the exam details button, and then click Take Exam. That will then open up a new tab, and you'll be able to get started. The time starts from the moment you start, and it doesn't stop. So even if your window crashes, you can go back in and start again, but the time will have kept ticking while your window was closed. It's a really good idea to review the AdWords Help Center while you're preparing, and if I were you, I would have that open and the search button ready in case there's anything you get stuck on while you're doing the exam. You'll also want to review the Fundamental Study Guide. Some people think it's a good idea to print that off before starting the exam to gain an overview of important information for the exam. And to become fully certified, you must pass the Fundamentals exam and one other exam, such as mobile or video or advanced search. It's something, the exam, I think you'll find it is probably, I don't know, it's worth doing just to see if you couldn't get past it, and I'd really encourage you to have a go at doing it right now. I'm going to go back and just answer any questions anyone's got. So if anyone wants to put any questions underneath the video, please feel free, and I know we're running out of time, but we've probably got time for another 1 or 2 questions if anyone wants to answer any. If not, I'd really suggest that you go off and, while all this is fresh in your mind, go and attempt to take the exam. If you don't pass it the first time, you have the option of retaking it within 7 days. So I'll just have a quick look at any questions anyone's got. Someone asked, can you combine various match types of keyword within one ad group, or do you need to pick one? No, you can definitely combine various match types. It might be that you've got one phrase which is, so say for example, it's the most generic version. I'm trying to think of a good example of, so this is a question from Tom Fern. So say for example it was buying, so say you were a dog food shop and one of your keywords was dog food. Now the other keywords in the ad group might be specific brands of dog food, or specific types of of particular breeds of dog food. But you might still want to one on that specific phrase, dog food. Now, because that's a very generic term, it's probably going to be your most expensive keyword. You might want to put that one in exact match, because that's the one that you don't want any variations of by accident, if you see what I mean. Because if that one's costing £2 a click and the others are only £1 a click, you really want to make sure that that particular dog food one is the exact one, that is the only one that triggers that ad, and you're really in control of that one. And you can try out having lots of different match types in the same ad group, and it's quite a good thing to do to see how it pays off. Any questions? Someone asked about minimum maximum account amount limits on bidding amount policy. The minimum amount is £1. I think the maximum is £25. Does anyone else want to add any questions? I think because we've got past 5 o'clock, then I'm going to call a halt to it. But what I would say is a huge good luck to everybody. I hope you all pass the exam as soon as you can. Do have an attempt at it now, and please let us know how you get on. We're longing to hear, and best of luck with it. So thank you all very much for attending, and best of luck. Goodbye.